signal
This is NBA Unplugged, brought to you by theprobasketballtalk.com. It's time to talk hoops with Jacob Noble and James Bucklin. Here right now, I'm being hooked up to a life support system. I am James Bucklin of NBA Unplugged, and hopefully I can make it through the podcast.
We'll be fine. We're in a building that's going under a little fire alarm troubleshooting right now. So
you call it a fire alarm, but I think I might be dying here. Live on the air, NBA Unplugged, as the top podcast in NBA history, is now degraded to this.
A lot of stuff going on.
Welcome,
today,
folks, to another episode of NBA Unplugged, brought to you by The Pro Basketball Talk. I am, of course, James Bucklin. My life isn't actually in danger. It's just a little bit of a test going on in our building right now. I'm sure you can tell, and you might not even be able to hear me. With me, as always, is the creator of The Pro Basketball Talk.com, Mr. Jacob Noble.
I wish I created the pro basketball. That'd be a nice
you
investment.
Created the NBA, and you would make a lot of money.
Yeah, I wouldn't be sitting here with a fire alarm going on in the background. I wouldn't tolerate this stuff. I'd have some strings to pull, but we got a good show. We're done with our season previews, and the season is really, really close. I mean, super close.
Well, there's preseason games being played, so that's a good indicator that the season's on its way.
It's a huge indicator. So we're going to talk a lot about, the flopping rule that's come about today.
Big news.
Big news.
That actually kind of broke during our last podcast.
It did.
It was right there.
People were tweeting at us, but we had a show to do, so we couldn't focus on flopping. We had to focus on the Northwest Division.
We had an agenda, and you can't just break off an agenda in the middle of the show unless something crazy happens like a fire alarm.
Yeah. We're going to have a lot of fun with this fire alarm, I can tell. But, we're going to talk a lot, flopping. We're going to talk a little illegal screening, which Zach Lowe had a great piece, as you pointed out to me today, about the flopping rule, and that the real crime is not in the flops, it's actually in the illegal screens that, would put Kevin Garnett out of business if it, came about.
Yeah, it's tough to really monitor those, and they really do try to crack down on it as much as they can, which is why there's a lot of bad calls that result from illegal screening. There's a lot of things that are illegal screens that go completely unnoticed. You'll see Dwight Howard gets away with murder on those. I don't want to single somebody else. Just
single
Hendrick is another one that comes to mind. But there's also guys out there getting called for screens that are just not even there. And the rest are sort of fabricating that to sort of show that they're enforcing the rules.
Yeah, I mean, it's all subjective, and if you take that away from the officials, and they try, because officials are humans, they make errors just like everybody else. But at the end of the day, I mean, as Zach Lowe points out in his piece, I don't think that you need to do a change. Honestly, I really don't. You should just keep the rules as they are. I mean, it's part of the game. People earn a living by doing fire alarm tests. So.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with Jacob. I'm having a really hard time concentrating.
But no, we're going to have Zach Lowe. No, I'm sorry, not Zach Lowe. His old associate, or I should say, his old associate, since Zach Lowe was on the Grantland. We're going to have Sam Amick from SI join us, and we'll probably wait another 5-10 minutes to give him a call.
Yeah, let's wait until the fire alarm subsides, and then we can go ahead and give old Sam Amick a call.
Yeah, so, the seasons are right underway, and another topic I know you wanted to bring up with Sam is about the NBA playing European teams.
Yeah, we'll talk about the influx of the European flavor into the preseason that we've seen so far. You saw Dallas has been participating, playing some European teams.
Yep.
We saw Boston play against Istanbul for a couple games, so that was exciting. It's definitely a big deal right now, and you see those practice conferences with Stern, and he's going over everything that's happening there, and he won't talk about it, but in the back of his head, he really wants European teams to start getting introduced into the NBA. Right.
Yeah, I mean, he almost wants to establish a world basketball, but, I mean, with the cost of traveling and everything, it's definitely something. I believe we talked about this a few years ago on podcasts about how you go about it. Do you make a European division, and how do they come here? Do they come to America and tour for 2 months and play no home games in 2 months, and then go back, and then 5 teams share a plane and fly over there and play all the teams?
The scheduling would be brutal.
Absolutely brutal, and it's it's the issue of it. But, Europe does it with soccer. They have divisions. They have the North American division. They have, an Asian division and African divisions, and they all play. And they get the European Cups, you get the African Cups. So, there's definitely something that can be done.
A lot of changes would need to be made.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
To accommodate that. Luckily, now, speaking of things that are absolutely a nightmare to schedule, we did not anticipate that fire alarm going off there, but it would seem that has now subsided, unless, of course, that comes back. Jacob, I hope that you reconsider next time when it comes to podcasting time. Maybe wait until the fire alarm subsides. But you know what? We're back now. And well, there is, we've got some nice, sweet silence now. Ooh. So we should be able to continue with this podcast.
We could just play with Legos for the next 20
hope,
minutes.
Folks, that you were able to actually hear what went on there. And no, I was not actually hooked up to a life support system, so I am still alive at this point. I did not just flatline.
Oh, no, he's alive and well, everybody. He's not going anywhere. He'll be here forever.
Oh, no.
Forever.
But yeah, those are two big topics that we can go over with Sam today, the flopping rule and then obviously the European preseason.
The big notice we got to tell everybody, though, you only get us for an hour today.
True. Maybe people have gotten used to the 2 hour. Those were all specials for the division.
Those are specials.
Previews, right. This is our normal format, only 1 hour. So hopefully if you were getting a little bit annoyed with the length of our former podcast, then we definitely can accommodate you now with a shorter 1 hour format. Scheduling issue here to let you all know of today. And
I think now is a good time to go grab our buddy Sam and see what he's up to.
Sam Amick from SI. You can follow him at Sam_Amick, A-M-I-C-K.
Spell that one again?
A-M-I-C-K.
Louis?
So we're going to grab him now. We can start talking a little flops in your league with him.
Oh, I love flops. Speaking of, who do you think has the best floppy hair when flopping? I don't think there's a debate on that one.
That's an easy one.
That's an easy one. We let you guys go easy, but we're going to take a quick commercial break and let's we're
going to get Sam Amick on the line here so we can talk hoops.
Energy, we cross the hall. Gravity, we bounce the ball. Tenacity, I'll beat you all. So make your play and I'll watch you fall.
Hello.
You there, Sam?
Yeah.
How you doing? You're with us on the Pro Basketball Talks podcast, NBA Unplugged. How you doing today, Sam?
Good, Jacob. How are you, man?
Oh, we're fantastic here. So we decided, we finished our season previews, so we thought we'd bring you on, kind of pick your brain on what you're looking at this upcoming season, and obviously the big story of the past few weeks has been the flopping that's been going around. It's a fun topic. It's a very opinionated topic, and that's what we're here for. We're here to grab your opinion. So, without further ado, my first question is, what do you think of the rule? Do you like the rule, or do you hate the rule, and why?
I like it. I think that, it's probably not going to have a tremendous impact, but I kind of feel like at least there's a safety net, so to speak, in terms of, there's a limit to the insanity that is the flopping. That I think has gotten worse in recent years. I think that the video review is a good component because to ask, these officials to make those calls spur of the moment is going to be nothing but guaranteed arguments with coaches all game long. I think that's a tough call. Yeah. But I think that if nothing else, the guys that are, the most guilty of having, egregious flopping being a part of their repertoire, I think are going to just have to dial it back. No more of the, getting barely touched on the left elbow and catapulting, 15 feet to the side. That stuff is going to, draw a fine, obviously, and it's not just about the money. I think it's just about the shame that'll come with, guys like us talking about it and highlighting it. And obviously right now it's, who's going to be the first guy that gets popped. And so, it's not a perfect rule, but I think I am glad they're trying to do something about it.
Yeah, that definitely, if nothing else, will have that in the back of players' minds. Oh, man, I don't want to be that guy. Because that at least the first 5 to 10 flops that happen and actually get penalties for, those are going to be replayed and analyzed ad nauseum on ESPN and everywhere else for at least weeks after that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I think it was Louis Scola that commented recently of the Suns that was part of his defensive repertoire, that, you know, the flopping had allowed him to, you know, to play better defense than he would have otherwise. And that's gimmicky and outside the normal basketball rules, basketball play. You know, I mean, I was kind of laughing. I was at the Phoenix-Sacramento game last night, and Luis sat down at his seat in the locker room, and he kind of caught me with his elbow, and when he did, I was kind of thinking to myself, geez, if we were in a game and I was him, I would have, you know, flown, would have jumped to the side, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, it's probably more of a hot topic and probably gets more, you know, play and mileage in the media than it is proportionate to the real relevance in the game, but nonetheless, again, I'm just glad they're doing something. And this is outside the NBA, guys, but, you know, when Rudy Fernandez was doing his thing in the Olympics, and you saw kind of this culture clash for Team USA, and their guys were getting frustrated with how much flopping was going on. With a lot of international players that play in the NBA, I thought that was kind of the, you know, seemed like the tipping point publicly, and hopefully it gets better.
That's a fantastic point, Sam, because I didn't think about it, you know, as in terms of a Europe style of play opposed to what the traditional, you know, American style of basketball is playing.
And I mean, and not to interrupt you, but just to kind of dovetail off that, it's not to say there's not a you know, a clear line in the sand in that regard. Absolutely. I mean, to be honest with you, I think one of the worst offenders that's gonna have to change what he does is Chris Paul, of all people. You know, he's notorious for. I mean, if you catch him with an elbow, I mean, he'll act like you hit him with a shotgun, you know, sometimes just to get the call. So, you know, plenty of guys do it, but, you know, we'll see if it changes.
As one of our heroes once said, Mr. Bill Walton, the game is not designed to have 7-footers falling down. I should let James do the impersonation because he does a great Bill Walton voice.
Well, I won't break it out here in the middle of this conversation.
But my next question is the ruling on the replays is kind of interesting because, you know, as I'm sure you read Zach Lowe's piece on Grantland today, he kind of pointed it out about the situation in 2010 where the ball went out on Lamar Odom, but they were just replaying the ball going out and not see that Rondo actually fouled him, which caused the ball going out. So going to the flopping rule, they're going to be checking to see if someone's feet are in or, you know, inside or not inside, but they're not going to be checking on the timing. Like the rules for that is very, you know, limited in my opinion to actually dial down what the correct call should be. Do you like the rules on the replays, or do you think they should elaborate a little more or allow to call something else instead of just a black and white?
Yeah, I mean, it is limited in that regard. And I think in general, you know, they've already expanded, you know, replay in the league and, you know, obviously are only going to expand it even more going forward. But it's fairly, you know, fairly rudimentary, I guess I'd say, just kind of black and white. So maybe they end up tweaking it. I actually did, you know, full disclosure, I have Zach's piece on my must-read list. I hadn't read it yet. But yeah, I mean, I know, you know, it's one of those things that you get your foot in the door with a rule like this, and then, you know, you allow for tweaking and you know, refining. And in a couple of years, I guarantee you it's not going to be handled in exactly the same fashion as it is now. So no surprise at all that there's already a few warts that are being pointed out, but you know, I think over time it'll just get better.
Yeah, and with it only takes 6 to get a suspension, so obviously they're not going to be calling it on every flop they see. It's going to have to be, you know, specifically one of those circumstances that were mapped out in that example video. Do you think when they review these things, they're going to tend to shy away from calling out maybe star players, like you mentioned Chris Paul? Wade was featured in that video, sticking a leg out and falling to the ground. Do you think this will be like fouls and in some respects technical fouls where the star players maybe don't get called much as the role players?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think in the beginning they'll be on high alert to make sure that perception doesn't exist. So maybe you see some of the stars getting popped, but you know, I think once Chris Paul once it's late December and Chris Paul has 3 of them, then I think, you know, mysteriously you're gonna see that pace slow a little bit. I mean, I do think that, say what you will about the integrity of the league, and I respect that, but it's a $5 billion business, and they're not in the business of having guys like that, miss key games, because of a rule like this. So I do think that even if it's just a real subtle subconscious influence, then that'll come into play. But but we'll see. I just think again, I watched that video and I watched it with a keen eye because I really, like everybody else, I wanted to see, if the armchair official in me could distinguish exactly what they're talking about. And the examples they gave on that video, I really didn't think were that tough to discern. It really did seem pretty clear, why one was an offense and one wasn't. So I think they got the right idea.
Now, I don't want to give away too much of Zach's piece because he touches on a lot of topics, but most people don't think flopping is a problem. You don't like it, feel that people hate it. This is kind of a fun question for you. If you could, watch you basketball, what would that, what would you try to prevent in the game? Travels or carries or, illegal screens, whatever the case may be.
I think I caught the gist of the question. You guys were cutting out on me. You're asking if I could play, if I could play GM for a day, or not GM, but commissioner for a day, and tweak something. What would I tweak?
Correct.
Okay. Oh man, that's a good question. What would I tweak? I would personally give defenders, their freedom again. So, the space that's been taken away, over the years, the fact that it's become, the tweaks of the rules to improve the offense in the game. If you ask me what I like watching, this is going to sound random, but I like watching Dante Jones just get up in somebody's throat. A guy like that doesn't do a lot else, but he's a good defender. But the way the rules are geared these days, obviously, if you got the hand on the hip, if you're making any contact, then the whistle's blown. So, maybe it makes me a bad commissioner for business. Maybe that means we lose money. But I think that part of the game would be fun to have more of.
Yeah, and you may gain the interest back of a lot of old fans who missed those days when you could get inside someone's jersey and really D them up.
Yeah, and let's be honest, the old people are the ones that have all the money, so it makes sense.
Good point. And speaking of the fans, I was a little interested of some of the fan reaction I saw following the flopping regulations coming into play. You go up to the average fan on the street, and one of their top 5 concerns always for the past 10 years was, I hate the flopping in the NBA. That's one of the things that everyone didn't like. But then, of course, these regulations come out, and everyone's like, oh, that will never work. It's tough to please people.
Yeah, well, it's welcome to America, and especially if you're looking at, and obviously it's a global game, but, on the home front, I saw the same thing. But, and then Twitter, if you're gauging any reaction from Twitter, it's just that, as much as I enjoy it, it has a tendency to be, the land of the negativity. So, we'll see. It will. It's another storyline to add to the early season. Admittedly, it'll be kind of fun to have fun with the first offense and who is it, and it will be a little bit of a hot topic, and people like to complain in general, but that.
Oh, absolutely. Now, if
we've been on Twitter before, it is just a big explosion of everything. Tonight it'll all be about the vice president.
It's a living overreaction is what Twitter is. A living overreaction to everything that happens in life.
Absolutely.
Well, to follow. But I'd probably get rid of the hot step. I don't like when guys take 3.
I was thinking that too.
I don't like when guys take 3, 4 steps, putting the ball on the ground to get to the basket. And I think a lot of travels are missed that way. But
wait, what was that? Sorry to interrupt again, everything, but what was it that LeBron? The crab dribble. Remember the crab dribble?
The crab dribble. That's right. That's called putting lipstick on a pig. Yeah, you give it a nice fancy name, and it's not illegal.
Crab dribble.
So, you kind of mentioned that you've been attending some games already, and preseason games are underway, and we're all itching for that NBA excitement again. This is kind of a rookie question for you, Sam. Which rookie are you looking forward to seeing play in person most? If you haven't already seen him play, you could have already seen him, and maybe Thomas Robinson's your pick. But which rookie and why?
All right, I've got one name in mind. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting anybody. I'll admit I'm not I'm not that excited to see Anthony Davis because I just kind of feel like I know what he is, and he's very good. But there's not as much mystery there. Kid Gilchrist is a guy that, again, curiosity because I didn't, you don't end up watching a ton of college ball when you cover the league, and so I've seen the guy play. But I think I would move down the draft top 10 list to number 7 and probably pick Harrison Barnes, who I saw 2 nights ago of the Warriors, and I pick him because he got passed up by a few teams that I think it was somewhat surprising. I mean, the Kings didn't expect to have Thomas Robinson available at number 5, and so that's a team that if Robinson wasn't there, they'd probably pick Barnes. But when I saw him the other night, he looked really good. I think he started that game, and he's strong as an ox, and he was out there being aggressive, in ways that I think the North Carolina fans, and one guy hit me on Twitter, was like, man, this guy had to go to the NBA to get a little gusto in his game, that he was being more aggressive than he was in college. And there's some local chatter from the Bay Area writers that Mark Jackson has almost been, seems to be going out of his way to not praise Harrison Barnes very much, and that it's kind of, he's trying to keep it quiet how good he's looked in camp. And so, that's one guy that I think could have an impact this year.
There's a fire alarm going off, but I think it's just a test. But speaking of rookies and the preseason games, how are you feeling about the European flavor that's being introduced in some of the worldwide teams that are getting involved in the NBA preseason?
It's good. I mean, obviously, it's a situation where they didn't have, that opportunity last year because of the lockout, and there actually was just a good piece in USA Today talking about how that's the preseason is always considered a key time as the league tries to brand itself globally and keep pushing the boundaries and exposing the game to new regions and, or just kind of, bringing it back to places that it's been before. But with the lockout and only 2 preseason games last time around, that wasn't possible. So it's fun. I mean, I can't sit here and pretend that I can, name the starting 5 of any of these teams and really know too much about them. But I think it's a smart way to expand the brand, and that's what the NBA has done so well. I think you got some teams that are probably not thrilled in terms of the logistics of it. I mean, I don't know what the perfect balance is, but I do think you have GMs and coaches who are probably privately griping and saying, we're trying to put our best foot forward with our team going into the regular season. And one, just to kind of pick one out of a hat, the Clippers going over to China, and they're going to spend 9 days over there and have a pretty quick turnaround when they come back. I think, so it'll be good. It's good viewing, but probably not ideal for the teams themselves. But in general, I think it's smart marketing and, a good way to do things in the preseason.
It's funny that you mentioned those points there, Sam, because it also can help a team because we all know the story about the 2008 Celtics, how they bonded out, over in Europe and they were away from it all and, they just came together. So it's a fantastic way for teams to bond. And going back to your point about the general managers and scouting, this is also a chance to see your overseas scouting staffs and watch these guys in person that they might be talking about. And, some of these guys might get invited to camp.
Yeah, you heard a lot of the broadcasters bring up during those games that I did watch on NBA TV. They're saying, this team's looking at this guy, this team's looking at that guy. It's a good way to put that guy on the map.
Absolutely.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's an extension of the Olympics in that regard.
Yeah.
There was some of that in the Olympics where you would have, a guy playing pretty well. Patty Mills was obviously already in the league, but still, when he's over there playing for the Australian national team and doing, scoring 20 points a game and doing it against, Team USA and all the other top talent, that is a big thing. And obviously the mystery of the overseas market is nothing like it was 10, 15 years ago. And so, in a certain respect, these are all guys that are somewhat, they're almost playing in the minor leagues and trying to get, their shot at the league.
Now, JJ and I had a little fun a little while ago trying to discuss how the NBA can incorporate a foreign division. Figure out the scheduling and then how you go about that. Do you see that happening within the next 5 to 10 years, being a possibility to have a European division,
or 20
years, or however long it's going to take to improve transportation around the world? Do you envision an outside of the country division? Outside of North America, rather.
I don't. I mean, I have a hard time seeing it. I don't have the institutional knowledge when it comes to the facilities that you might be talking about overseas. The kind of the laundry list of challenges and red tape you'd be up against, I think, would be pretty long when it comes to, do you have the buildings, do you have the interest, do you have the logistics are obviously the biggest challenge. So I like the concept, but whatever pulse I have on it, it seems like it's something that is still on the to-do list, but it's been moved down in recent years, and it's still a ways off. And I don't know that David Stern, he's already said that he's probably on the backside of his career and doesn't have too much time left as a commissioner. So I don't know if Adam Silver will be able to push that part of the agenda through maybe 5 years from now, but it still feels like a long shot to me right now.
Now, shifting over to actual NBA players and real stories, you recently got the chance to speak with Dwight Howard. He put out a great piece about, his transition to LA and getting used to the city. Now, my one question for you is, do you see being a little problem down the road between the two personalities of Dwight and Kobe, where Dwight has that mean demeanor, Kobe has the mean demeanor of, professionalism at all times, where Dwight's he kind of jokes around during practice, has fun with people, he likes life, he's a fun-going guy. Do you see their two personalities kind of, butting heads down the road when times
where
get
have
tough?
I heard of that before? Lakers, Kobe, big guy, fun-loving.
Well, I mean, that's a fair point, although I don't know if you guys caught, I forget where I read it because I wasn't there when Kobe said it, but did you catch his comment the other day when somebody made that analogy? And his response was that Kobe called himself a little a-hole, I'll put it that way, and then he said that Shaq was a big a-hole, and that's the difference between Kobe and Dwight is that, he doesn't think Dwight is an a-hole. But I tell you, I spent a lot of time with them last week, walked away basically, and like I kind of wrote, feeling like the rest of the NBA has got to be, shaking in their boots because the chemistry appears to be there and the problems do not appear to be there. Obviously, though, this is not the time to take a pulse on that type of a situation. Everything's fine right now. You haven't played a game yet. So I got a little bit caught up in the what have you done for me lately, dynamic, which was me saying, no, I think they're going to be fine. Now, just last night I had a conversation with, a guy in a front office who would have a better sense of it than I would, and he was real quick to tell me that he does think it'll be a problem. He said that he does not feel that Kobe, no matter what he says now, you're wired the way you're wired, so all it's going to take is if the Lakers lose 3 or 4 games and maybe Dwight's complaining about not getting a couple of touches, or maybe he just makes a comment or two, and and Kobe's not happy with the way that Dwight's been playing anyways. So next thing you know, he's chewing on his ear. That could happen, and I don't think it'll be. I guess my bottom line answer is no. I don't think it's going to be the kind of thing that keeps them from winning a title, but that potential will be there all year long. I remember when Ron Artest first went to the Lakers, and that's a guy that obviously is going to have a hard time with anybody, kind of getting on him. And I remember kind of sensing from Ron, who I covered extensively on my beat writing days, that was a pretty tough cultural adjustment for him, to walk into this world where Kobe is the king and he'll say anything he wants and do anything he wants, really. So it could be a problem, but so far so good, and they seem to really be clicking.
You just listened to NBA Unplugged. Brought to you by TheProBasketballTalk.com.